science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
The Chloe Sanctuary hopes to give you insight into the health and happiness of your companion parrots. We hope to help you build happy homes using reliable and proven tools. The best homes are built on a rock-solid foundation. And the best foundation for a happy home is the bedrock of science. When we stand on the shoulders of giants, the scientists who have worked long and diligently to understand our companions, we can reach new heights of understanding. And understanding is the key to success.
I think treated, most of these birds have a good prognosis, and I would say
What does avian veterinary medicine have to tell us about our feathered friends? How can the tools of behavior shaping make our homes happier for us and our companions?
Shake.
How can we deal with biting, screaming, or other misbehavior? What is it like to live among parrots? Let them roam around about you and share a life with them. Of the Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.
Hi, and welcome to Cockatoos with Attitude. Episode 70, Babalu. Life passes so quickly. Live it to the fullest. Right, Bob? Today's episode was suggested by our patrons out on Slack in our team. And they want to know a little bit about what's going on with Bob, his history, and what's happening with his prolapse. And unfortunately, there's no cure for prolapses. You can slow them down. There are some surgeries that will, keep them alive for a while, but eventually they're going to die from infection, generally. And there's some other issues too that have come up with Bob. One thing it can do is affect their attitude about life, and so you have to watch the quality of their life really closely. And Bob's been having some problems there too, so we're working on those. But why don't we start in the beginning? In the beginning, somewhere in the mountains of Brazil, someone thought of a god, and this god's name was Babalu. And two of the characteristics of this god were that it could cure your insanity, and also Babalu could cause you to go insane. Bob's done that. Before he came to us, he was at an animal hospital, and they tried to rehome him 8 times. It didn't work. Every time he was brought back. For example, one time he went out, and the guy who adopted him left him in an office with computers, printers, and all that. Left him alone in there. Now, I've seen Bob in action. He can pull the keys off of a keyboard in less than a minute, every single one of them. He knows just how to hook his beak under. They go pop, 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 pop. Kind of like pip, 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 only this is pop, pop, pop. Right, Pip Bob? So he brought him back all angry because, this bird just tore up my office. And you did what? You left a cockatoo loose in your office? Yeah. So, you can see how he could drive people insane, right, Bob? Just, for example, just to give you a little what's going on today, I brought him in here. I've tried this before. I had a little work to do on the computer, so I thought I'll have Bob in here. I used to have all the girls. And I'll have Bob in here for half an hour. Lasted 5 minutes. He just does not like that situation. He wants to be on this couch. That's where he likes to be. It's his little domain on this side. He's being pretty good today. He hasn't tried to hurt anybody, have you? He's over here with his teacher. This is Lorelei. Lorelai's the one that taught him to preen. Before she started working with him, he didn't preen any other birds. Did you, Bob? He's actually having a good day, aren't you, Bob? He's my friend, he's my teacher, and my beloved little boy. He doesn't have that much longer, a few more years maybe. I say maybe because with his emotional problems, his quality of life is slipping down. So, he's approaching his last days on Earth. And throughout this entire talk, I want you to keep in mind that I'm using applied behavior analysis. See that little turn where he went after Peaches just a little bit? That's what he's been doing. He hasn't hurt anybody yet, but he's been turning towards other birds and then lunging at them a little bit. So I got to keep an eye on him while I'm talking. But one of our patrons wanted me to mention this, so I'm going to mention it here and probably in a little short film or something. I use ABA. That doesn't mean that every moment of every day that these guys are alive, they're constantly being controlled in some way. That's not what applied behavior analysis is for. When these guys are all acting normally, well, actually, they're kind of hanging out. Uh-oh. I see. That's Steve Jobs over there. That's Steve Jobs. Okay, I'm going to let you sit there. You think it's funny, huh, Bob? I'm going to let her sit there for a while and see what she figures out. Because every time I do one of these, she just has to fly over there. The rest of the time, she doesn't do it. I'm probably going to put up a different poster soon anyway. But so it'll be kind of fun to see what she's going to do. What are you doing up there? Why don't you get off of there? Pippa, come here, Pip. Come here, Pip. Come on. Come on. Come on, Pippa. You can do it. You can fly over here. Come on, Pippa. Come on. Pip, Pip, Pippa. Pip, Pip, Pip. The Pip, Pip, Pippa. The Pip, the Pip, the Pip, Pip, Pippa. Come here, Pippa. Come on. Lorelei. Come on, Pippa. Well, maybe she'll just figure out that this isn't what she wants to do if she hangs up there for a while. She's not hurting herself or anything else, really. It's just a poster. But anyway, one of our patrons wanted me to say that these guys they're allowed to do a lot of stuff without any intervention. It's not necessary. If a bird starts biting or a bird starts acting up, getting into things it's not supposed to, then I'm going to use interventions. If they start screaming all the time, screaming, biting, going places they're not supposed to, that kind of thing, not listening to me. Well, come here, Pip. Bob, leave her alone now. Come here, Pippa. Come on. Get down. Come on, Pippa. Come on. Come here. Come on. Come on, Pippa. Come on. Come here. You can do it. You can just let go and fly. I know you can. You got wings. Come on. Come on, Pippa. Come on. Come on. Come on, Pippa. Come on. If you pull that little thing out, I'm going to have to get her. She's going to start messing with the pins because I don't want her to get a pin in her mouth. I'm going to scoot in her beak. Excuse me. Bob, you be good? No, Bob, don't. Don't. Get off the poster. Come on. We'll go that way. Uh-oh. Who's on the floor? Leave her alone, Bob. No. You hear me? I said no. Babalu! No. Back over here, Bob. Bob, get over here. Get down here and behave. Come on. Come on. Come on. That's a good boy. That's not a good boy. Leave her alone. Get up here. Get up here. You sit over here. You sit over here. You behave. This is how he's been getting with his pain. You can tell by his eyes, they're quite frequently oval, and a bird will either be aggressive when they have oval eyes or in pain. And I think he's in pain. The problem with pain relievers is that if you give them a pain reliever, it loosens the muscles too. They're muscle relaxants at the same time. So if he has relaxed muscles, then he's going to start leaking out of his cloaca and he could die from an infection. So one of those situations. But so what this patron wanted me to make sure that everyone knows is that we use these techniques kind of like a toolkit. You know, if you have a problem, let's say if you have to fix something on your car and you're a mechanic. I have a certificate as a light duty mechanic. I need to fix something. I'm going to grab my toolkit out and fix it, right? I'm also going to be keeping an eye on my car. If I hear funny sounds or something's not quite feeling right, then I'm going to check it out, right? So that's how you use ABA. Applied behavior analysis is used when it's necessary, like any tool or toolkit. It doesn't mean that all the time these birds are required to act a certain way, and it isn't used as a mind control. It's used to give them choices, kind of like kids. You know, you're going down in the grocery store, and you got your child is, I want that cereal, or I want this, or I want that, and then you give them two choices. Well, you can't have that cereal, but you can have this one, or you can have this one. You can have the Cheerios, or you can have the Frosted Flakes, and you give them a choice. Well, you should give a child a choice between Cheerios and Frosted Flakes. I mean, that's a pretty much no-brainer. But if the kid's wanting Captain Crunch, well, then Frosted Flakes are probably a better choice. I always like getting in trouble with the cereal companies. So anyway, so I'm going to be watching him with ABA. I'm going to be doing quality of life assessments regularly, once a week because of his condition, instead of once a month like these other guys get. Sometimes they don't get that because I see no change at all. There's no reason to do a QL. So in the beginning, what I saw from him was his cloaca started leaking, and that's what led to him going to the vet. At the moment, he has just a little bit of leakage. He has been stitched up. This is his second time. He's gone almost 7 months now on this one. The first one was only 5. So the stitches are holding. He does have aggression problems. He has confused behavior sometimes and unfocused. And he wants a routine. He's pretty heavy in the routine thing right now. Be nice over there. Hey, be nice. So, when you see a bird starting to have changes like this, and you know they're physical, or you know they can't, that you might be able to make them a little bit better. You may be able to help him in some ways, but he's going to be sliding down. Remember what happens in some old age homes, how a person will have to get old and start having dementia, then they'll go into an old age home and no one will go and visit them. And they sit there, they don't really recognize anyone, and nobody cares. Well, the problem with that is that you don't want to lose your love, your compassion, or your feeling for your companion. So try to remember the fun times and the things you did with them, and remember that they're not just what they are now. They were other things in the past, and they meant something else to you. So going back to when I first met him, he was full of life. He was sassy. What they did is they had him in a cage outside during the day, and they would walk by to go get dogs and walk them, and they didn't pay any attention to him. The only time they paid attention to him, or at least most of them, he has one, Becca, who paid a lot of attention to him. So if he gets upset, he'll start calling for Becca. It doesn't happen very often, but he will. So most of them just walked the dogs and walked by him, and then when they went to take him out of the cage, he would fight them. He would lunge at them and open his beak, and he figured out, if I do that, they'll stop and I can stay outside longer. And it was true. They'd go get someone else, and they'd have to try to work to get him in his cage. I didn't buy that from the beginning. He went to lunge at me, and I just put my arm closer to his face, and he turned his head away like that. That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to get scared. So he'd been rehomed 8 times when I met him, and at the point we just started the sanctuary, and I didn't have any room. I was living in an apartment at the time when I started all this, and at the time I had Lorelei and Chloe. So we had foster parents, and this one foster parent took him, and that lasted about 2 days. He said, "Oh, he screams all the time, and the neighbors are complaining," so I didn't have a place to put him. So what I had to do was I ordered a bunch of soundproofing material to put up in the apartment that I was living in, so I could soundproof the walls. They worked, by the way. I mean, I did soundproof it. Nobody complained, but so I had to soundproof all the walls with this special material that had to hang on the walls. It was quite a nightmare. But in that process, as I was waiting for the material to come, and as I was putting it up and arranging everything and making flight areas for him and that fun stuff, I was going to visit him. This took about 3 weeks. I was going to visit him every couple of days and talking to him. He was back at the animal hospital. And taking him toys. He had all kinds of toys. In fact, one of the workers there said, "Boy, he's got way too many toys." And I said, "No, he's a busy boy. He needs something to do." And no. Pippa, get off that. Pippa, no. Come here, Pippa. Pippa, what are you doing up there? Come on. I'm sorry. Get off there. You little pest. No, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Get off. Come on, Pippa, get off there. Pippa. Babalu, no. Pippa. No, Bob. No, Bob. No. Come here. Come here. You can come back over here. I'm sorry. Babalu. No. Let it out. Get down here. Stop it. So I was going over there and giving him toys and talking to him and redoing the apartment to be a sanctuary that would have more than just a couple of birds. Coco. It's all right. Coco. Coco. Shh. Darn it. Don't you move. I'd like to do a big shout out to those people who make this video cast possible. Cockatoo would not be possible without our patrons. And a great big welcome to our newest supporter, Cameron H. Thank you to those of you who make one-time donations. Without these patrons giving us of their hard-earned cash, we couldn't continue doing this podcast. I'd like to urge you to please give us at least $1 per episode. We do 2 episodes a month. We'd like to do more, but in order to do that, we have to have the time. And right now I'm spending a lot of time trying to beat the bushes for the Chloe Sanctuary. It's not easy taking care of birds that are severely damaged, both emotionally and physically. So, please, I urge you, become one of our patrons. And I'm sure that Peaches would thank all of our patrons in person if she got the chance. We try to answer questions from our viewers as we can. If you are a patron, be sure to email us at patron@chloesanctuary.org, and your questions will take precedence. We always put our patrons first because they put us first. Calm down. Hey, baby. Hi, Coco. You guys, you calm down. So what Bob taught me a lot of things. So finally I got it all set up, and I went over and picked him up and brought him back. No, Pippa! No, Pippa! No, Pippa! No, Pippa! Okay, Peter. You calm down. I brought Bob to the sanctuary, our little apartment, which was all filled up with soundproofing stuff on the walls. And it looked pretty neat in there. It kind of looked like a jungle. And I think I have some pictures of that I can slide in. And the same day I had to go out and get Snowball. What was funny that day is when I brought him in and we had Murray, she was an African Grey who died of old age, but what Murray said was quite funny. She looked at me and the only time she ever did it, she called me a name. She only did it once. I can't repeat what she said, but she only did it once, and I was so shocked because I brought in 2 cockatoos. Her attitude was like, "What do you think you're doing?" So he was used to lunging, and he actually did start biting. And what happened was, every time I'd walk by the perch he was sitting on, he'd reach out and bite me. And then, so I figured out that what you had to do was when you walked by him, you had to stop and talk to him, and then he wouldn't bite. He just didn't want people walking by like he had at the animal hospital. People had walked by him all the time. And that was his problem, so I stopped and talked to him, and that was no issue. Well, one day, Lorelei used to taunt him a little bit. She was just a baby, so she'd taunt him, dive bomb at him, and one day he flew up, and she flew way up, and he landed on my back, and he was just trying to hold on. He didn't want to fall, so he bit me on the back, and he just hung there. That was the day I overcame my fear of bites, because that was quite painful, and I couldn't figure out how to get him off my back. So, Peaches, it's okay, sweetheart. She's just flapping. Pippa, you need to calm down. You're causing too much trouble today. I can't keep getting up because Bob gets all freaky and attacks other birds. Pippa. Pip. Yeah, you can be on the floor. That's no big deal. So, another thing that was fascinating about him is he would cut wood into some pretty interesting shapes. I hope I have some pictures I can put in, but that was a fun time with Chloe and Lorelei and Murray, Snowball, and Bob. It was pretty fun. Then, of course, we had the fire, and he was good. I mean, they all were. I reached over to grab them, and they just hugged him and let me pick them up because I had to get them out the door. The last bird and I went out the door as the walls caught on fire. I mean, huge flames leaped up on the walls. So, you okay down there, Pippa? All right. So then we were living in limbo. We didn't quite know where we were going to live. They gave us a temporary apartment, but basically told us, even though it had been mice that had chewed the wires in the wall, that they wanted us to leave. It's interesting, too, when you're in a situation, they always come up with some kind of a story. They were saying someone was complaining, they worked a night job and that we were too noisy during the day. I knew that wasn't true, but, their insurance company probably said, just didn't want us there because there were, 6 birds in the house and 6 birds in the apartment, so. Their insurance company, even though it had been determined it wasn't my fault, nonetheless, they wanted us out. So a friend of ours that I used to do computer work for, she just got out of the hospital. She couldn't get out of bed, and she needed computer work done. I went over there, and I'd been looking all over the place to try to find a place. And she said, well, have you looked in the newspaper? And I haven't. So she hands me the newspapers. I'm going out the door, and there's one in there. There's an ad for the place where we are now. And you talk about fortuitous. If I hadn't said, the heck with this, I'm going to go help my friend, then I would have ended up, who knows where we would have ended up. But, you okay, Pippa? All right. So we got moved here, and Babalu was still in a pretty small cage. And we got a grant. And so with that grant, I bought Bob and Roman new cages. Right, Bob? Didn't I buy you a new cage, Bob? This is the thing, see. He tends to either hide here or go after other birds right now. It's one or the other. He doesn't play as much as he used to, do you, kid? Do you? Yeah. So I got to watch his personality flower as he got a bigger cage and he had more room to play in. And he'd run around flapping his wings in there and having a good old time. And Didn't you, Bob? So we were doing rescue and rehoming at the time, and Bob did pretty well. He got along with all the birds that came in. You know, there were issues, but they weren't hard to overcome. And then we started realizing that we were rehoming birds, and even if you check out where they're going and you set rules and you have them come and you teach them some basics and that kind of stuff, that it wasn't working. You know, these birds would go out and they'd come back because we had the agreement we had for adoption was the same one that is in the sanctuary book that's put out by the Avian Welfare Organization and co-written with the ASPCA. And that one requires that the bird come back. And there's a $1,000 fine that you have to pay if you try to sell the bird or anything like that. So they bring them back to us. So finally that was it. We said that after Cause went out the last time, we said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. So about that same time, I noticed that Bob was starting to strain while he was pooping. Now, he hadn't been on a terrible diet at the animal hospital. In fact, they had him on Harrison's, and they were giving him fresh fruit and vegetables every day. So he was on a fairly good diet. I mean, nothing you could complain about. But being in a cage all the time, not getting any exercise, you know, it's diet and exercise from what we can tell. And it's not just, you know, moving around. Flight is the thing. Now, he can fly, but he just never got the opportunity. Did you, Bob? No. So he got his first stitch about a year ago. Didn't you, Bob? Because it was almost completely coming out. And I noticed, now this is something I don't know if it has anything to do with cloacal prolapses, but I noticed that when he screams, and he started screaming a lot more, and screaming means to repeat a screech over and over. So screech, 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 screech for hours on end. He wasn't doing it for hours on end, but maybe 20 minutes, twice a day, that kind of thing, which is acceptable for me. It's not a big deal. It's manageable. When you start talking 2 hours, it's not quite so manageable. Especially if you got neighbors that can hear you. Of course, we don't really have that problem. They can hear us, but it's really quiet compared to when you're on an acre compared to if you're next door to somebody. But I noticed that when he was screeching, his cloaca was almost coming out. So he went down and got his first stitch. And, that was after Dr. Jenkins looked in there and saw that the colon wasn't doing the peristaltic movement. There's no motion to the colon at all, which would indicate that food's not moving down the channels. So that happens. We think it's a lack of exercise and improper food. Of course, Bob was at some other homes for a while, and he didn't get much exercise. So between the two of those things, we'll never know the cause, though. The reason we'll never know the cause is you'd have to have a bunch of birds and wait for someone to come down with the condition and keep track of their lives all the way to that point. Not going to happen. I mean, that would be tough with people. When you start talking birds, nobody's going to do it. Not in a world that's based on money. They're not going to do that, so we'll probably never know. But it's fairly obvious that muscle tone is based on exercise, and if you're eating junk, you're not going to have much in the way of exercise either. And come on, please. Leave her alone, please. Here, baby. So, after his first stitch, we put him on dietary changes. That's when I came up with some new mashes. Basically, you have to have fiber, a little bit of fruit, anything that can help the digestive tract move, okay? You want to make sure they have enough liquid, there's enough fiber in there. Fruit's good for it. Applesauce is pretty good to move things through, too. So I came up with a mash. Noticed, too, that I was making muffins. They all like muffins. The muffins I make have pellets in them. And actually, I've had people who are volunteering go, oh, muffins. And they, you walk in and they've got a muffin in their face and say, well, about half that muffin is bird pellets. And then they just look at you like, well, it tastes pretty good. Yeah, I've been cooking since I was 6 years old, so They do taste good, but and there's nothing gonna hurt you in there, but you're eating pellets. So figured out that he has a problem with gluten. Now there's this whole thing about gluten-free running all over the country, and unless you've got a specific problem with gluten, it doesn't affect that many people. We're talking a tiny portion of people are affected by that. But he's affected. If you give him a wheat flour of any kind, he will start to leak out the tail end pretty bad in his current condition. So try to get him more exercise, have him run around more. We were able to do that for a while. But now he will just kind of cause problems anywhere he can if he's out. So he's out in here with me, but he doesn't get to usually come out with the other birds that much. Because as you can see, if I try to even move at all, he tries to attack the other birds. Don't you, Bob? Now, after he had his first stitch, okay, cloacopexy, after he had that, he didn't seem to have any personality changes, except maybe positive ones. He wasn't leaking out his tail end anymore, and so he seemed to be a little happier. You really can't tell her happiness, but he was playful. He wasn't going after anybody. He was almost like his old self, almost. He was only taking maybe 5 seconds to poop, where these guys will usually take about a second. Tail up, tail down, it's that fast. He had been up to like 20 seconds of straining before, so that was positive, and his attitude was positive. But then I noticed after the second stitch, he started having... When you look at a bird and their eyes are round, they're usually not aggressive, they're not in pain. Like with Peaches, when she starts to hurt, her neck hurts, her eyes will turn oval, as in the skin around the eye will come into an oval shape. That's an indication of aggression or pain. So now, most of the time, he does have that look in his eyes. He doesn't have the round eyes, he has the oval eyes. And so after the second stitch, I noticed his eyes becoming more oval. Plus, he also tends to do things that are more irritating, like this, where he's pulling the hairs on my arm. He used to do that a little bit, but now it's really common for him to just sit there and try to pull the hairs on my arm. I've used a number of different techniques. Excuse me, Bob, please. I've used a bunch of different techniques with him, and they work for a little while. Right now, if I were to have a pocket full of sunflower seeds, I could give him a sunflower seed about every 2 minutes, and he'd stop doing this. Right, Bob? Bob. Nope. Let's put him up here for a second. Bob? Babalu? Kisses? Oh, you gave me kisses. You haven't done that today. Thank you. That's a good boy. You gave me kisses. Oh, thank you, Bob. This diving down to the side, this has all happened since the second stitch. He pretty much wants to be there. And then if you give him a piece of wood to play with, which he used to play with all the time, he'll usually only play with it for a second or two, then he'll go for the hairs on your arm again. So I'll keep handing him pieces of wood to try to get his attention, to get him to play with something, or hand him a toy. Put a toy over there. It worked this time. It's not working as well as it used to. He's also been giving me less eye contact. In the past, he used to pay much more attention to me and give me eye contact. Now when I'm talking to him, he'll usually look down or away from me. His recent blood work, his CBC, and his exam showed everything normal except for his cloaca. So there's, as far as we can tell, there's no physical problems other than his prolapse that's causing this problem with his behavior. Now, another thing that happened after the second stitch is he started screaming a lot more. He's taking longer to poop. Again, almost 20 seconds or a half a minute. And he's screaming a lot. So I had to take him out of the front room, even though we're on an acre. Constant screaming up the hill. The two people up the hill from us could hear that constant screaming. And if you step outside and you constantly hear even if it's not very loud, that can be irritating. Kind of like the Chinese water torture, right? The other side of it is that was spurring some of the other birds, especially Cecil, to be screaming more. So that wasn't good. So I had to move him in the back, and there were no bigger cages. It's a sleep area. So there was one big cage, which is his night cage, but it had no floor on it. So it was okay to leave him in there for overnight and take him out in the morning. But like most birds who haven't had a lot of toys for a period of their lives, they'll tend to play with their poop, and the last thing he needs to be doing is eating feces. Any of these birds, but especially him. So I had to take one of these grates that has a 3/8 rod all the way around. I took wire cutters and cut that off, and I fit a 3 foot by 2 foot grate on the bottom. And he's not taking that off. That's in there nice and solid. And the tray down below opens still, so. And I made it nice for him and had a lot of toys in there. And he seems okay with it. It's nice and light. That's a good light area. Isn't it, Bob? Mister in the corner, I'm not paying attention to anything. His cage territoriality with this new, with this new problem where he's having to strain again. His cage territoriality is up. I've noticed that sometimes when I go to put food in there, in the past, if you go to put food in there, he's looking at the food. Ooh, what have I got, right? But in this case, he'll just defend the territory like you're not coming in. You're not coming in my cage. And that's just not Bob. That's not the way he is. He was never that way. And hence I'm thinking it's going to shorten his life if he gets meloxicam, which is the painkiller, because it's also a muscle relaxer. But if I don't do something, then his personality is going to get so bent from the pain that his quality of life's going to tank. So that, plus we've tried a couple of psychotherapeutics. There's several more to try, so we're going to keep trying till we find something where he can be calmer and not so aggressive towards the other birds. Hoping we find something. So unfortunately, our primary avian vet is a long trip from here. Not most people would say not, but it's 3 hours, and that's all the extra time I have in my 18-hour day. So if I'm taking birds down there, I'm not getting anything else done except the cleaning and them getting out. That's it. Just bare minimum day. So whenever I need to go down there, if I have to go down there to try 5 different drugs, it's going to be a problem. I'll do it, but it's a problem. That transport down there is a problem. So we're going to continue doing the applied behavior analysis and to work with him to try to get rid of the lunging and the aggressiveness. The thing about applied behavior analysis is that you're working to help them make choices. You're not forcing them to do things. So if he's in a lot of pain, it's hard to help him to make good choices, because you know how it is. If you're hurting, you don't really care if somebody offers you a chocolate bar, right? Yeah, I like chocolate, but right now with this sword stuck in my leg, chocolate's not my number one interest. So with him, it's kind of the same. I'm also doing, as I'm always doing, I'm researching more on environmental solutions, things that I might do to make him happier. I'd like to have him in a bigger cage, but there's only so much room in this place, and we're maxed out with the number of birds here now. So talking about putting another 6.5 foot tall by 4 foot by 3 foot cage in the back, there isn't room for it. But it would be nice to have him back in a bigger cage. I'm not moving the one from the living room because Salamander needed a larger cage. Sal's much happier there. It stopped him from screaming so much. Just got to figure out. Bob seems pretty happy in the way I have his smaller cage set up. And that's a foot shorter. and a foot less wide. So, but he seems pretty happy. He wasn't happy when I first put him back there because he was screaming all day. So I just had to take him after the second day of that. I just took him and put him in his night. I put him in a small cage in the back. So when he started that screaming, I moved him to the back room, and he wasn't that happy. I mean, the way it's set up there is for night, so it's not really conducive to like a lot of light for them and stimulation and that kind of thing. So I had to rearrange things so that could happen for him. Right, Bob? And you're okay with it now, right, Bob? Bob says, yeah, I guess. Now, once a week, the idea is to reintroduce him to the flock, to see that he gets some flock experience like today. It's especially difficult. You won't see him in here, I don't think, for any more videos. I may have videos or little clips of him doing things with me and that kind of thing, but as far as in here, you can see how it can be a problem. If I have to get up for an issue, he's going to go attack somebody. So, and Peaches has an injured neck, so if she has the 6 fused vertebrae, so he knocks her off the couch, then this can be a real problem. I mean, she might get hurt in such a way that it could, might kill her or damage her further. So he's going to continue to have QOL assessments weekly. It's important to check his quality of life, both his behavior and his physical. Going to try to keep my buddy here alive as long as I can. But the most important thing is his quality of life, and that's more important than my wanting to be with him. Because you can't help but love the little guy. He's a real sweetheart, and he loves me. He's just sick, and he's sick and dying. He's only got so much time left. It is ignorance of Bob's nature that turned Babalu into a living gargoyle. Bob's would-be parents made a hasty choice and found themselves in living hell, torn between guilt and frustration. I have seen the joy in Babalu's eyes now that he has a new life with me as his companion. To see Babalu love and trust again is worth the effort of a lifetime. But, once again, Bob is heading toward the pain of separation. My heart nearly broke the day I discovered that he was heading toward a cloacal prolapse, that his life will be cut short. To find love and acceptance and then have it stolen away from you by failing health is too much to bear. We can slow the progress of his failing health, but we can't stop it. He will need several surgeries, and eventually Babalu will die. We want to give him the best possible life until that day. His surgeries will become progressively more expensive over time. Won't you please lend Babalu a hand and donate to his medical fund today? Our donation button is on our webpage at www.chloesanctuary.org. Just be sure to say, "For Bob," in the notes when you donate. I've heard of some alternative therapies, medical, not alternative as an alternative medicine, but they use this with some other animals. They use laser therapy on the cloaca. One person has been talking to me about their bird that has a prolapse, and their doctor has tried out this laser therapy that's used on turtles and that kind of thing. And apparently it wasn't doing much in the beginning, but now this bird has gone with just a cloacopexy for over a year and no leakage. So who knows, that might be an option for him. It's worth checking out. The last time I checked with Dr. Jenkins on it, he said that there hadn't been enough work on it with birds to know whether it would really do anything. So, come on, let's show the world the Babalu. Come here, Babalu. Hi, Bob. Let's see that tail. See, it's kind of messy back there, but I mean, I cleaned him up today. But he's not leaking right now, so that's a good thing, right, Bob? Right, Bob? He just doesn't seem to pay any attention to me. The only time he pays attention to me is when I get up and it's like, oh, I can go after the other birds. Right, Bob? I think the most important thing to remember every day is the love and trust he's given me over all this time. And he's been good with almost all the other birds. He's had some issues, like with Cause, because Cause flipped him over and put him down with his foot. Cause actually held him to the floor with her foot. She's a tiny thing compared to him. But he puts on a big bluster, but he doesn't. He really is a sweet guy. He's just falling apart, aren't you, Bob? Well, you looked up at me. That's a new one. Yeah, I know. You do try, don't you, boy? You do try. So that's our Babalu. He may have, I don't know, anywhere from 6 months to 6 years left in him. It's hard to tell. We'll keep looking for methods to make it better, but we'll try to keep him happy for a while. Do you want to say goodbye to the people, Bob? You want to say goodbye to the people? Come on. Let's say goodbye to the people. Say goodbye. Say goodbye, Bob. Bye. Can you say goodbye? Bob, can you say goodbye? Kisses? Kisses? Aw, kisses, Bob. Aw. Nobody gives kisses like Bob. Kisses. Aw, thank you, Bob. I love you. The hardest part, and as we're saying goodbye here, the hardest part is, in order for me to shut everything down with him in here, I literally have to take him out. If I don't, he is going to attack the other birds. I can't walk over to cameras and turn them off with him in the room. I just can't do it. I'm sorry, Bob. I got to put you back here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love you very much, Bob. It is ignorance of Bob's nature that turned Babalu into a living gargoyle. Bob's would-be parents made a hasty choice and found themselves in living hell, torn between guilt and frustration. I have seen the joy in Babalu's eyes now that he has a new life with me as his companion. To see Babalu love and trust again is worth the effort of a lifetime. But, once again, Bob is heading toward the pain of separation. My heart nearly broke the day I discovered that he was heading toward a cloacal prolapse, that his life will be cut short. To find love and acceptance and then have it stolen away from you by failing health is too much to bear. We can slow the progress of his failing health, but we can't stop it. He will need several surgeries, and eventually, Babalu will die. We want to give him the best possible life until that day. His surgeries will become progressively more expensive over time. Won't you please lend Babalu a hand and donate to his medical fund today? Our donation button is on our webpage at www.chloesanctuary.org. Just be sure to say, "For Bob," in the notes when you donate. We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at cockatoo@chloesanctuary.org, reach us on Twitter @ChloeSanctuary, and join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Bye.